Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tearing It Up podcast, the unofficial bike podcast that we become in the summer. We've got another great bike conversation up in the queue today. If you've been listening lately, hopefully you have. Biking's just been peppered in. We had a great conversation recently with Jen Gurecki, not all about bikes, but she's biked across Africa, so it comes up. I've got some more on the docket. Brooke Barker-Pottle was just on recently. We talked about career pivoting. Teresa Baker's going to be on, and we're going to be talking about joy and finding that in this kind of time in the world where it can be hard to. So it is not all bikes. And today, even though there's a big focus around it, I think you all are going to find it very interesting and relate to a lot of what we're talking about in regards to just being a woman and maybe getting older and seeing changes in the way your body reacts to activity, whether that's mentally, physically, or just talking about all sorts of changes we've seen, experienced. And so even if you're not at that point yet, I think these conversations are super useful so that you have an idea of what to expect, because I think we're in a very interesting time right now where the millennial and above generation didn't have a lot of this information ahead of us, and we've hit these moments in life that we're like, "Is this normal? Like, should I be feeling this way?" and have all these questions. So, again, the more we can talk about it for anyone younger, I think it's the more information you have, and just don't feel totally thrown off of your rocker. Things are normal and you're not alone in going through any kind of changes, and there's resources out there and there's only more to come. And so my guest today, Marissa, she's going to have some resources for you guys on and off the bike. And yeah, so Marissa, will you tell everyone where you're at in the world today as we're recording?
Yes, I am coming to you from the San Francisco Bay Area. I am in a tiny town sandwiched in between Berkeley and Richmond. That is where I come from. It's called El Cerrito. And yeah, that's where I'm at today. It is a chilly, we're having June gloom. So it's chilly and foggy, and yeah, we're enjoying it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't hate it. It's there's a little breeze out there today, which is nice. It's not super hot. It's in the 70s here in Tahoe, and I was just seeing some recent weather reports of potential snow in the forecast up high this weekend. So right now, you guys will be listening to this in July, but right now here in Tahoe is a big week plus of trail running. There's been a couple big races, Broken Arrow Sky Race, and then this coming weekend, which will be June 25th, is the Western States Endurance Run. So what I saw posted was, they take off pretty high up in the mountains here at the ski resort Palisades Tahoe, and they start at sunrise, 5 a.m. or something like that, and they run 100 miles down to Auburn, California. So people were posting "Hey, be ready in the morning." A lot of spectators go up there and watch these runners take off. They're it's going to be in the 40s. There's high winds, potential snow. So those runners are going to start off very cold, and the spectators are going to be, needing to bundle up. I saw another post too from a gal who lives in the Mount Rose area, so up high, that she had a snowflake in her screenshot, and I was like, "Is this AI? Because I don't see a snowflake for the 4th of July weekend." And I'm I don't want that. I can handle this high or low 70s is perfect for me. But I have some 4th of July weekend plans. One, working, but then my birthday's July 6th, and I wanna be outside and float the river and do stuff. So I'm like, "No, don't get cold."
Yeah. Oh, wow. I am planning to be up there this weekend as well. Not going the running race, but yeah. I hope it doesn't snow.
Yeah. Well, it won't be the snow will be up very high in the
Okay.
mountains, so down in town, it will just be a little bit cooler, um, although, like I said, when I looked at the forecast, it didn't seem like anything crazy cool or rain or anything like that, but just a colder front moving in. Are you gonna be here for just for fun, or around it's also the Truckee Tahoe Gravel
Yeah, the
race is
gravel
this
event.
weekend?
So, I'm not doing it, unfortunately, because I have been injured. It's a whole 'nother podcast, but I am supporting and going to have my bike and ride, but just not doing the event. So, super excited, though. I really wanna do it next year.
Very cool. I was thinking about doing it this year as well, the short course, which is 30 miles. I haven't done a race before. Those of you who've been listening have probably heard that or heard me talk about it. We also had a conversation recently with Rebe Dunn of um, she is a gravel biker and has gotten really into gravel biking the last couple years and done a lot of races. And, we talked about these races having a community aspect and a fun aspect and not just this competitive thing. And so for me, being a, like, lifelong athlete, it can be hard to do those kinds of events without any kind of competitive, like, edge or side or, get my mindset there, but I have to work this weekend, and I just didn't feel quite in this space to, like, dive into even doing the short course yet, didn't feel like this was the one for me to have that good fun, like, experience and 0 pressure, so I'm still waiting to figure out what event that might be for me to actually dive in and give it a go, but I'm just not fully there and confident yet with my riding too. Because I mean, there are cutoff times on races, so it's like, I don't have to be competitive, but I still wanna, like, make the cutoff time and not just totally, like, DNF or something, and I'm like, I've been fighting this cold and allergies and a mix of things for weeks, so I'm like, "Nah, this one's not for me," but, I will be working the restaurant I work at is very close to where they take off, so
Awesome.
you'll have to, yeah, come
Yeah.
in and grab, like, a beer or a snack or something.
I would love to. Yes, yes. You'll have to tell me offline. We'll make plans because seriously, that would be
Totally.
fun.
Absolutely. Okay, well, Marissa, obviously, we've been talking about bikes. I warmed the people up. I told them we were going to be talking about bikes, but let's tell them exactly kind of like what it is that you do and specialize in, and we'll dive into your like biking background and all that too.
Sure. I'm both an athlete and a coach. So I have been coaching cycling really since 2008. And just recently, I would say in the last 6 years, I've really focused on really coaching women just like me who are like ambitious, we're 40 plus, and we don't want to give up, like hang up our wheels. So we are just needing some new answers on why like what I was doing in my 30s isn't necessarily working for me anymore. So that's really like what inspired me to kind of shift into what I do now, which is primarily coaching for 40 plus women, so women over 40. But really in between about 35 and 80, I have athletes running the gamut and doing amazing events all over the world. So that is my passion. I love doing it. And I still love being in the community, racing, like all of that. So currently, and I can dive into all sorts of stories, but the TLDR of right now is I'm really focused on track racing. It is so much fun. It is bringing me so much joy. The community is so uplifting, not just locally in San Jose, which is where our track is, but also all around the world. So I am. The other thing about cycling, as you all probably know, is there are just so many disciplines within cycling. So when you get kind of bored with one, you can shift to another. And I really think it's important to keep the fun as we get older. Like, if it's not fun, why are you doing it? Right. So, the joy,
1000%.
yeah, the joy and that mentality are so important to me as a 40 plus woman athlete. If you're trudging through, banging your head against a brick wall, then maybe let's try something else that's a little bit more fun and interweave that style of cycling into your training and see what happens. But that was really, I like to say I'm out there doing the same sort of hard things as the women I'm coaching. So I am kind of walking the walk, talking the talk. I have empathy for when things hurt. Anyways, I'm not just standing on a golden pedestal telling you to do stuff. I'm in there doing
Yeah.
it with you. And I think the last part I'll say is, as I go through what we would call like perimenopause and towards menopause, I mean, I just know that everything changes about every 6 months or so. And so I think it's so important to have somebody like me who's like, I'm also figuring this out every 6 months, and to not, again, be standing on my little ivory tower to say, well, if you're not doing it this way, this is the only way. Because I too am having to figure out what happens when it shifts. So I think that having that in the field of cycling, whether you're road cycling, gravel cycling, mountain biking, like we all have some very specific needs. And to me, it all comes down to recovery. Like, can you
Yes.
recover from your thing? All right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's so important to have that perspective of going through it with the same time as your athletes are going through it because you can really learn things, spread the word, help coach people through it because I've been through it before, and I just love it. So I think there's an interesting piece about cycling where because I think people think racing and you're just like so hardcore, da 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 da. But for me, I like performing and doing that, but I actually really love helping other people do it. And I think that that's a rare gift. I don't have the gift of being single-minded and I am a cutthroat winner and I win all the time. That's not my personality. But I do like to challenge myself and I want to challenge you, like whoever you are out there, to show up at more races. We need more badass women showing up and inspiring more people. So I guess that's my
Yes.
long-winded response to what am I doing here?
I love it. I mean, there's so much there, and I think what I wanna start with is what you said about being a coach who is going through it, like, at the same time as your athletes are, and I think, there's when you think about sports and coaching and you've heard of coaches who maybe didn't play the sport that they're coaching, and they can still be a very great coach. They can know the game in and out. I don't discount that at all, but I do think there is also the other side when someone has experienced something themselves, just a different level of empathy and relating on different levels. It's not just like, "Coach, like, do this, do that, because this is how it works, and strategy and blah, blah, blah." Like, when there's a problem as that coach, you can relate to your athlete and really understand from that empathetic point of view on how to get past, this hurdle, and it's not gonna be the same exact problem or the same exact answer because bodies, as we know, are all so different, we respond to things so, so differently, and each time. You could have the same injury, you could have torn your ACL multiple times, right? But every journey of that recovery is not gonna look the same, especially as we age and things change in life and all of that, and I think that's just, having that kinda mentality overall has been what helped me kinda navigate changes in my athletic performance to know that, like, it's okay. Like, if this isn't the same, this is what I enjoy over here, and really kind of finding the good things and, like I said, the joy, and if you're not having fun, then, like, why are we doing it? And for a long time, I kinda was feeling, I think, a little more resistant to, like, gravel biking or something because mountain biking has this, like, cool girl stereotype thing, and like, "Oh, I wanna do that, and I wanna go downhill still and be hardcore," and not feel like I'm now just like a gravel cycler who rides on these roads and wears spandex or something, and I'm like, "But it can be so hard too, and guess what? I'm just enjoying it more at this time in my life. I'm enjoying longer rides, and why do I need to put pressure on myself? And also, I can recover from that kind of activity, and I can do it longer, so that's why I'm drawn to it, and same thing with my workouts, like, I've had to adjust the way I'm strength training because I wasn't recovering in what I was doing before, thus I wasn't able to do all the other activities I love outside of the gym, and that was a whole identity crisis.
Ah, and is there something to be said about being a beginner again at something, right? Because it once you on a different bike and doing what you could deem, I assume, like boring roads, but now you're on such a different bike that it feels like you're a beginner all over again. I think that part of this journey of again just shifting hormones that kind of challenge us with strength training and shifting desires when you're on the bike. It's okay for us to change our minds. And that's something I think we as athletes struggle a lot with because I felt like that as well in terms of I want to continue to push my envelope, but also I've done all of these races umpteen times. Is it okay that I don't do them anymore? Who am I if I don't do them anymore? Right? There's a little bit of identity, like you mentioned. And so I just kept coming back to it's okay to change your mind and you can always go back and do it again. But if it's not fun and it's not inspiring you to go Right, or try something new, then are you just wasting your time? Like, am I just wasting my time? So, I don't wanna be wasting my time. I wanna keep seeing new things and having new experiences. Because if any that's like, not to get too existential about it, but isn't that what life is about?
Yeah,
Right?
no,
So
totally. Yeah. No, you're right, and I think that when we are specifically talking to or thinking about people who identify more as a athlete or whether it was competitive or not, it can be very hard to, like, let that go, and like I said, with my experiences with thinking about doing a race but from a complete fun point of view, and, that's what the Sturdy Dirty was for me the 2 times I did it, the all women's enduro race up in Washington, but there's still part of me that, does it, like, has a really hard time of letting go of, like, wanting to be competitive, like, sure, I can do this and I can have a lot of fun, but there's that ounce of me that's like, "But I wish I could do it competitively," but that brings me to kind of a point, with you and coaching and women over 40 and starting things is that I if I wanted to, if I really wanted to, I could go be competitive in a race. I could train to do it. I there's no you're too old to start this activity. Look, am I gonna go be an Olympic gold medalist? Probably not, but that's not the goal anyway. But if I wanna be competitive in a race, that is also a large, that's a perspective, right? That could be so many different things to so many people. That could be placing, in the top 100, the top 50, whatever. It depends on how big the race is. For me, identifying what that competitive, term might mean could be totally different than someone else. It doesn't mean podiuming,
Mhm.
podium, whatever.
Yeah,
But what I'm getting at is I know you said you worked with athletes for 35 to 80. So it's like I can get a coach and I can make some lifestyle changes to be real serious about something if I wanted to. And so if you're out there and you want to do something like I don't really want to do it just for fun. I want to like see what my body can actually do at this point when I'm training it correctly because I think what a lot of us really run into and have a hard time accepting at least for me is that you just might need a coach. You might need someone to tell you, like, how to help you with your nutrition. Because 'cause I've just been such a I can do it all myself person,
yeah,
and it's like, but I can't, and I have to accept that and say that it's okay. Because even though I have this background in sports as a personal trainer and this and that, it's 1000% okay for me to need a coach too because this is not my wheelhouse to train competitively for, like, an endurance race.
totally. I think that every coach needs a coach, if anything, because
Yes.
you have such an opportunity to learn from a different style or a different background, and so as soon as I've always had coaches because I am just such a fan of coaching, but as soon as I really became like, "This is my career path," I was like, "Oh, I have been blessed with so many amazing coaches who are freely giving their experience, freely giving me lessons that they have learned," and I really believe that if you wanna go fast to get a result or and whatever a result means to you, a PR
Mhm.
or just finishing or doing it and feeling fantastic, and not struggling to finish, right? But whatever that result is, you don't have to make all the mistakes that most people make to get there when you have a
Mhm.
coach because we have been there, done that, compiled all the information, and can freely kind of guide you through almost like the little obstacle course to success, and making
Yeah.
minimal mistakes that set you back along the way. And once I really embraced that as an athlete, I was like, oh, yeah, take me. I want to go. And I
Yeah.
got to go really far and really interesting places because I was so not just coachable, but I just believed in the learning and asking questions as often as possible so that I didn't bunk in a race or I, gave myself the best what do we I like to say that luck this is from a coach, but luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and when I really embraced that in my racing, when I was very into road racing, or even now, it is like you were saying, I don't really need to place or podium, but I like to come at it from if there is this luck out there in your race, you have done the work, you've prepared, so when that opportunity is there, you can take the opportunity and go. So I really live and breathe that when it comes to events. So whether you're riding your bike around the world or if you're doing your first gravel event, we're going to sit down and we want to talk about your process, your goals within the race, not an outcome because you can't control that, right? But you can control your actions and behaviors during the event, and it's those that will help you be prepared for when the opportunity arises. So for me, that happened. I was in a race many, many, many years ago, and a local race here, and I worked with my coach. We had all these plans for like, okay, well, and all of a sudden I was in the breakaway of this small criterium and then it was so exciting. I made the breakaway, right? And then I had no idea what to do, right? So that was another learning lesson. Okay, we got to that step. So that when that opportunity arose, I was there because I had done the preparation. So that's kind of what I mean when you get to an event. When you prepare and you have the guidance, to help you again with the strength training, backing it up with your fueling and getting in the right skills and drills that you need to be successful at your event, then the success is going to happen because you have done the preparation. You're just waiting for that opportunity to ride away, right? So I really approach, I guess, all of my coaching in that manner. It's not about were you the best on the day, right? And honestly, some of my very best learnings or lessons have come on my worst race days. And I would always,
Yeah.
allow myself to, like, be a pity party of 1 for a day, but then I sit down and I write down,
Mhm.
every single lesson, mistake, every single thing that happened, and, I do say that no matter what, like, a lot of people don't ever learn from winning, right? They win a race, they keep winning races, they keep moving on.
Mhm. Yeah.
When you lose or you have had a bad race, you can list out every single mistake, and that is a lesson that you're never gonna repeat again, right? So I'd rather learn 10 lessons in 1 race and never waste that event than to kind of be bored with winning. Not to say that winning isn't great, winning is awesome, but I just
Yeah.
wanna say that I think when you're approaching, let's say, your future gravel event, um, even if you don't have a great day, there's still that opportunity to gain every single lesson, a dozen lessons that you're not going to repeat again because you've learned from this time. And that's kind of what coaching and cycling eventing
Absolutely.
is, right? So it's a constant improvement, self improvement. It's constant self improvement, as well as long as you're willing to learn the lessons, right? That does take a lot of humility and self awareness, but I am such a junkie on that now. I'm like, give me a day where I fail because I'll tell you all the things that I did wrong, and I'm not going to make those mistakes again.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, and it's something we've talked about on the podcast in other ways and how much we can learn from failing and in so many different aspects of life where you're like, "Okay, that didn't work," and even on the non-competitive side, just from I did my first bike packing trip this last weekend, and I've put a lot of focus on, like, so many people told me just go out and do it with what you have. Don't worry about getting this, that, and the other, and like having the perfect setup and blah, blah. Because one, you have to figure out what's going to work best for you, what your setup is, and you'll learn along the way what you need. And I get that, but again, I still have such a hard time in my own mind because of a lot of experiences I have elsewhere of, you know, feeling unprepared and like, well, I want to have this gear and that gear, and I know I don't have the right setup, and I don't want to be like this kook out here knowing I'm making this mistake and I shouldn't be doing it with this, but it's what I have, so I'm gonna do it. But I did it. Okay. I had my milk crate ski strapped to my front of my rack. I was on a very steep and rocky climb. I knew that this could like not work out great, but I was gonna make it through there. And ultimately it was like, I'm either gonna go with what I have or I'm not gonna go. And so I finally had hit that point where I went with what I had and I knew that I didn't have any high expectations. Like this could not work out. This whole setup could be so dumb and I could be really miserable biking with it. And if it is, guess what? I'm on my own. I'm solo. I can literally turn around at any point on this road and say, okay, nope, we do need to do some adjusting to this setup. And this is not going to work at all. But It's fine, I made it, and I learned, obviously, that I don't wanna do it that way again, but it got me through. So so that's good and fine, and sometimes it just takes a lot to get us to that point just to get started, to go try something, and again, it doesn't have to be anything involving competitiveness, events, or racing, but I've been thinking more about my friend Natalie has been saying this for years. She's also a personal trainer, and she's also always had her own coach and trainer. She climbs a lot of very high mountains, does mountaineering and all this, and so she's always had a coach working with her for these pursuits, specific pursuits she's doing, or just to keep her on track.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, like, yeah, I follow someone else's program because I don't have the capacity in my brain sometimes at the end of the day to set something up for myself. And I
Yes.
also know I won't prioritize myself. And I also have to know where my weaknesses are, that I don't know how to really train well around, like, long rides and things like that, and so just because I wanna feel better on my bike right now for
Yeah.
longer rides, and I'm like, maybe I can get a coach to set up a few training, like, plans and rides so that I can get a little bit faster on the bike, and, like, there's some things I can learn for sure, and it's only for me to go do some of my favorite loops just a little bit quicker, because if I can do them a little bit quicker, then I can maybe do them more often,
Yeah.
squeeze them in before work or something like that, or, again, that recovery process, I can go do that 30-mile loop and know that I'm not gonna be wrecked at
Yep.
the end of the day,
Yeah.
and know that I can go do other things. So it doesn't have to be, like, so that you're training for anything super, super specific. So for me, again, the personal struggles I have is just coming to realize that I can't figure it all out myself and I need some help, and
Yeah.
sometimes need some help from someone who knows it and has gone through it themselves, and then especially adding on the layer that we've been, kind of dangling along, of women of getting older. Perimenopause also has a huge, huge range.
Yes.
Women in their late 30s can start having symptoms of perimenopause, and it can start later. Like,
Yeah.
we have the internet telling us all these things and, like, "Oh, you're feeling this way, you're in perimenopause," and it's like, "Am I? I don't know. I could be. It tells me I could be. It tells me I could be feeling this way for 10 years before I start menopause." So I feel like we have all this information coming at us and we don't really know what's going on
Mhm.
in our bodies. And sure, blood tests and things like that help, but what also I think can help, and is having the support of someone who's gone through it and feels this way and can at least sit there and listen to you and be like, "Hey, I trained through that too. It may be perimenopause, it may not, but I still know how you're feeling, and I can help you, like, work out, train, and whatever, live around it."
100%. I wanted to say before we kind of jump into this, but I was gonna touch
Yeah.
on your bike packing trip. I totally followed it on Instagram. And I just the one thing that you come back with, like as soon as you talked about it, this glow comes over your face. And I was gonna say how when you do the thing, regardless of the equipment, right? All of a sudden you have confidence that you can do it again. And I think that that is this hidden secret sauce for all of us. And it's hard for me as a coach to like, how do you put that feeling, that glow into words? Because that's what people want.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I want. That's the feeling I want to go out on my ride or my bike packing trip with. But it's like, how do you say that? Like, I want to be faster. I want to be stronger. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? But it's like, I want this, that je ne sais quoi, but it's that glow that comes across your face when you are so stoked that you did the thing that was hard because you didn't have the right
Yeah.
equipment. And then you know you can do it and it's going to be 10 times easier because now you're going to have better equipment. You'll have trained differently, etc.
Yeah.
So I just think that everything I do boils down to that glow that you just, like, washed over your face talking
Same.
about the bike yeah. But the reason I talk about it from as perspective of 40 plus women is I think all of us inundated with skinny talk, right? It's everywhere right now, and
Mhm.
then and we're just kinda like the capitalist patriarchy being like, "You need to be back in the kitchen." And I just keep
Mhm.
thinking like we grew up with Title IX. We are not gonna stop doing sports, and so we need to find a way through this. It's almost like getting through the haunted forest, right? So we need to find a way through it, and
Mhm.
there's 36 and counting, symptoms of perimenopause that we're all of us will have to deal with at some point. And so I think it's, and then lastly is like there's really no concrete definitive information about it because they haven't studied us. So, and I just
Yeah,
they've studied,
exactly.
yeah, there's been tons of studies on menopause, but mostly on highly sedentary populations. And really, up until our generation, there haven't been tons of active women doing sports into their 60s, 70s, 80s. And so we just don't have the data to know exactly, well, obviously we should be doing this. We just don't have it.
Yeah.
Which is where
It's soup
I come in, right? That's where I'm
Yeah,
like, "Well,
exactly.
I've been doing this for 6 years. I've seen a trend on what's helping some people. Doesn't help you. That doesn't mean you're broken. We just need to find another way through." And I will say all of it comes back to recovery every single time. Recovery, recovery, recovery.
That's what I'm saying is that in the last few years that I noticed and when I had to make changes was when I wasn't recovering 'cause I think about it a lot, honestly, in the way we think about, drinking and how things change, like, when you
Yes.
were young and in your 20s, right? And you could go out and, like, go party all night or something and then make it to work by 6 AM and, have no problem and do it again, and it's like, well, that's the same way with, like, working out or pushing your body. It's like, wow, I used to be able to do all this activity and I didn't I wasn't as sore or I could go out and do these back-to-back, like, sessions or, rides or whatever with no problem, and now I have to space them out longer, and um, again, there's also so many outside variables all the time that we don't have
Right.
control over, especially, women with families and working full time, all those things that might come into like just the stress that you're dealing
Yes.
with on
Yes.
a changing daily, weekly that we have to take into account and just not get too hard on ourselves that
Yes.
like why is this happening and I mean I again am absolutely a person who does this like why was last week so easy, and this week isn't. I just get tired of not feeling like I can stay on a routine
Mhm.
because literally the week to week can be so different and it's super frustrating and I think it can make you want to just give up and stop and but then you feel like, "Oh, I stopped for 1 week and now I feel like I'm 2 months behind and I'm starting from square one all the fucking time." And
Yeah.
it's annoying,
Yeah.
but again, that's where I'm coming into when you have someone on your side to
Yes.
kinda talk you through this can be so helpful and just remembering that it is absolutely the up and down graph, not a straight line, and we just need that support sometimes. Like I
Yeah.
said, it doesn't have to be in any kind of
Yep.
competitive
Correct.
way
Correct.
to
Yeah.
know that you just to get through the day,
Yeah.
like, so to get through the weeks and
Yeah.
whatever. And I am okay, so you did talk about, um your racing days and whatnot, but will you tell us a little bit about kinda, like, dive into your experience and when it really kinda changed for you and noticing in your body of, like, "Okay, I'm
Yeah.
kinda putting the more competitive side behind me and diving straight into coaching and, the research and courses," or anything like that that you kinda took or the data that you gathered just from your own training to get you to this point to wanting to help other women in these situations?
Sure. I'll try to be succinct, but I was gonna say I was a high level, like, elite cyclist, road cyclist, through and then, like, when gravel was starting to be a thing, I did several of the NorCal, like, Lost and Found, it was before, like, the Bike Monkey really took a lot of those, but anyway, so we're talking, like, 2017 era, so really high level cyclist winning all these races. I went national, like, did a bunch of the national races, was not winning those races, so I was very much like pack fodder, but also I was, my late 30s, and I was just loving it, travel, all of it, so cool. I was also, helping build an indoor cycling studio with my business partner, and that was about 2016, and then I also had a concussion from a race, right? As we do, we fall off, we hit our heads occasionally, and so all of that came to a head. I recovered from the concussion, but around, like, 2018, give or take, 2017 to 2018, so right around when I was turning 40, I was, like, 39, 38, 40, somewhere in there, I was just really dealing with massive fatigue, and I've never felt before, and, I didn't know that it was new. I thought it was training related, and so I let my coach know. I was skipping things. I was always getting sick, and I was just like, "What is going on?" So, obviously, looking back, I was under recovered, but also I was starting really like 2 feet in with perimenopause symptom of that central nervous fatigue, which, if you haven't experienced it yet, is like a deep bone depth, like, cannot keep my eyes open. I slept for 9 hours, and I could have slept for 24 more hours. Like, it was just an exhaustion I've never known, and so I was like, "This
I
is
feel like
different."
that's where I'm kind of
Yeah. I was like,
getting
"This is very
into at
different," and then I
38.
was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Am I sick? Do I have, like, a disease?" And so I went to the doctor, they're like, "All your labs are fine." As we always get, "All your labs are fine." So I just was, like, totally not sure. And then fast forward, like, Roar, the book this Dr. Stacey Sims and Celine Yeager wrote
Mhm.
had kind of just come out. I had been reading it, and I was like, "I heard about this perimenopause," and that was the first place I'd ever heard of it. I'd read, and I was like, "Oh, central nervous fatigue, that is what I'm experiencing." And so immediately, literally in the same week, I had 3 friends say, "I've been just so tired," and almost exactly identical to me, and all of them were between about 35 and 45, and they're all cyclists and just this deep fatigue. So I was like, "There's something here." So, I really went deep on that book. I actually used her, like, PMS prescription, which you can look it up in Roar. That helped me, honestly, a lot. It really helped ease that central nervous fatigue almost instantly, like, within the same day, and it's really just you can look it up. It has to do with, like, focusing on getting enough branched chain amino acids, to help combat the fatigue, and a bunch of other supplements that generally we're all generally taking anyways, like vitamin D
Mhm.
and magnesium, zinc, anyways, so I really helped me get through the days, and I also noticed it was very synced up with my cycle at that point. So, anyways, fast forward, that was, I turned 40, and I was really focusing on starting to help other clients, not clients, but cycling friends like me who were struggling with that. So then fast forward, all of a sudden, COVID happens, the world shuts down. I had launched my current business, which is action fitness and coaching, and I really focused on helping women like me who were just like, "I'm active, I wanna continue to do the things, I am struggling." And then I started learning about all the symptoms, right? Originally in Roar, but then I really started taking a lot of more their extracurriculars like we do through personal training. So a lot of them to do. I did like Menopause 2.0, which is now, or Menopause for Athletes, another menopause certification through FitMed or something like that. And just really focusing on helping women over 40. And then so by doing that, having certifications, also along the way, got my, like, a nutrition certification, so able to really help people from all angles. And this whole time, I'm also coaching women over 40, really distilling it down to what I talked about, my philosophy of just, like, we don't wanna hang up our wheels. We wanna figure out and continue through. So I really come at it from training. Everybody's good at training. Nobody I've talked to is not good at training. We're all like, "I'm on the bike. I'm strength training." I will say the biggest shift is that most women now are strength training. I When I started, almost
Mhm.
nobody was. So I feel like,
Right.
yes, we're doing something. We back it up with fueling, and that is the biggest black hole right now. A lot of people still anti-carb, fats. I mean, there's just so many misnomers around. Like, we'll take something that works for a small population and expand it to everyone and take it as
Yeah.
dogma, and it's just hurting you, so please stop. But,
Yes.
in general,
And again, it's
yeah,
super, super,
yeah,
like, related to you
yes,
personally. You
yes,
really cannot take nutrition, like, advice as a template
no,
from someone else and do the same
yeah,
exact thing,
no,
because it is like, no, what they say on the packet that says, "Oh, you can only have this carb mix if you're going on an hour-plus ride." I'm like, no, I need it in this first hour. I need it." I saw a TikTok, sorry to go on a rant here, but it pissed me off. It was this guy kinda saying basically, like, "If you're going on this short ride, like, you don't need to be having this, like, carb mix because that's too much sugar for you that
yeah,
you don't need, you're not
yeah,
burning it off." And I'm like, "How the fuck would you know what my body's going through?" My body at 220 pounds pushing this bike up a hill, it, like, is using a lot more energy than your body, who's used to endurance training, doing that ride. So you cannot blanket statement say, I don't need a carb mix if I'm only doing a hour-long ride. Like, I
It's not
have
he doesn't know what you had before, and he doesn't know you've been up
yep,
all night, like, you know,
yeah,
it's always it depends, and it's so independent for per person, 100%. Yeah.
yeah,
But and for me, I really, really wanna help you match your cycling training to the nutrition that will support your training. That's really what it comes down to. Is I'm like, we're not a weight loss. I don't do meal plans. I really work with you one on one to find what you work with, right? If you don't like something, I'm not going to make you eat it. This is all about
yeah,
you really knuckling down and just making sure we're eating enough to support the training. And then we back that up with recovery, including our nutrition. We want to have nutrition to recover those muscles. And to your point, have energy, right? You're like, I can't do those same strength training in the gym because just wasn't recovering. And so there is a need to pair that recovery fueling with what you're doing, the training. And then
yeah,
also the acute recovery. Like, what are we doing every day? And then are you doing enough recovery weeks? And that's another, I would say, after the fueling, that's the second thing that people struggle with the most is giving myself permission to recover. And I'm like, it's not a permission thing, babe. It's 30% of your training is recovery. Like, we need to
yeah.
do the stress and then we need to recover from the stress. It's not a nice to have, it's required. So I think we're really starting to see this shift, to be honest, because like I said, I see people coming to me with already strength training and then they know they should be doing something, but they're not doing it. Right. So we're really getting along this continuum of like working myself out of a job. But
Yeah, seriously. No, it's so hard, like, the nutrition and recovery, those are 2 things that I still struggle with because, 1, with recovery, we are taught in all aspects of life, if you're not doing nothing, like, you're lazy or you're wasting time, right? It's very hard for me to see a task here right next to me,
yeah,
a sink full of dishes and be like,
yeah.
"Well, if I just wanna relax
Yeah.
because it's my only chance in the next 5 days to have a day off,
Mhm.
um, why do I wanna force myself to, like, do this task before
It
I can
takes some
relax? Like, I have to be
unlearning.
time efficient. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, and you feel like you might feel in your body like, "Well, I don't need a full rest day. I could go out and do this light activity or this or that," and then for me, I feel that, but then all of a sudden I start this activity. I go for this light walk that has to take
exactly.
me up a giant hill that I live on,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, "Oh my god,
Oops.
my legs are dying, but
Yeah,
now I have to get home." So,
yeah,
like, there's no turning back, but
yeah.
you start something, you're like, "Oh, no." Like,
That's
maybe I shouldn't have gone, and now it's
yeah.
too late, and,
That's
it's
where having
yeah,
a
like you
coach
said,
is
unlearning.
so, so good for you, right? I would
Yeah.
be, like, calling you saying, "Okay, but I see this recovery walk, and it was a hike up a 3,000-foot hill.
Yeah,
That's not recovery." I
totally.
did this word, it does not mean what you think it means.
Exactly, exactly, and I've seen stuff like that on the internet, like, "Okay, yeah, your recovery, it means, like, don't do anything. It's not like do this, this,
Yeah.
this, and that."
Yeah,
And then
no,
with nutrition
I
oh,
was gonna
sorry, go
say I
ahead.
was like, with recovery, I have to define it for people, and especially because people are like, "You mean I can't ride?" And I was like, "If you have the self-control, I just want you to stay at, like, a heart rate zone 1." Riding would be perfect, to be honest, if you could stay that low because it is so good for you. It is
Yeah.
so good for bringing up that rest and digest, and, like, you get the glee without all the sweat. And so, like, please go for a ride or an easy walk. I had somebody say, like, "I'm gonna go for a" she called it, like, a yoga swim, and she's like, "I just stretch out in the water," and I was like, "Yes, all of those things are great." But really, if you don't have and a lot of us fall into this, if you like, "I'm riding with my friends," and now your recovery ride's a 55-mile ride. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not recovery." Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yes, you were
No,
gonna
you're
say.
fine. Well, just speaking on the, like, nutrition again, if you guys have been around a while, you've probably heard me talk about it and how it's always been the hardest thing for me and to lock in on for, reasons of just not being in a routine ever on, like, a regular work schedule, that's like, here's a meal prep day and yada yada. But that and I think trial and error, I want to be able to take a nutrition template from someone else and say, "Perfect, this is what I This is what I need to do. This will get me through it. And unfortunately, like I said, it is not that way. You do have to try and find out what works for you. And with nutrition, especially if you're thinking about longer activity, unfortunately, that can lead to not feeling very good because some of these easy digestible things that you're eating on rides or longer rides, they don't settle that well with your stomach. People have you hear horror stories of especially like mostly because of the area and industry I'm in and where I work, it's a lot of trail runners, like,
Yeah.
oh no, I've had to like go shit my
Yeah.
pants in the woods
Yeah,
because of
the GI
the
distress
carb
thing.
mix.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like I get like terrified of that. And obviously when you're not trying to be an ultra endurance athlete, it probably won't be that intense for you, but I've had a little discomfort
Mm.
recently experimenting with different mixes on different rides, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, like, this one I've had 0 feeling with, and this one I do," and yeah, you don't wanna have to deal with that, like, so you wanna
Yeah.
just be able to know, "Tell me what to do, tell me what to eat, tell me all these things because I don't wanna go through the hard part of figuring it out," and
Yeah.
unfortunately,
It
like,
doesn't
you
work that
just
way.
you have to go through
Yeah.
that stuff, and the same thing with just your training program as well, like, that might not be working for you the way it does for someone else, and with the recovery, just touching back on that really quick is you hear and see a lot of stories too of women these days who are who weren't strength training and
Mhm.
doing all these high intensity classes, and I don't consider a lot of those strength training because in those high intensity boot camp kind of classes you are using lighter weights like 15-pound dumbbells. That is not gonna at a certain point gonna be enough for you to continue to grow the muscles and really like strength and resistance training. Plus, trust me, I did that for years. I coached it for years. I have nothing against it. I think if that's the way you move your body and enjoy it, that's fantastic. But these women who were doing primarily those high intensity activities mixed with like running or biking a bunch, like were fighting so hard for this body type or to maintain a weight, and then all of a sudden they backed off. And they're like, "Wow, look what 3 days of medium intensity has done for me," because your body can actually recover.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not even giving your body the chance to ever rest and recover to see changes, and, so you gotta take your foot off the pedal a little bit, and
Huge.
it's a slow and steady thing for sure that we
Yeah.
don't wanna hear. Like, "How have I been pushing so hard for so long, and I didn't see any of these results I wanted to," and then finally when I slowed
Yeah.
it down, you're like, "Oh."
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and I've had so much success with women who come from just I just say, like, I'm just pounding my head into the dirt, like, I am dead tired all the time, and they're wearing it as a badge of pride because they're so good at their
Mhm,
training, but they're never actually achieving their best results because they're so tired, and so, working with people to change their paradigm, their mindset around, what if we take this and just turned it on its side slightly, and really the best way I could describe helping most women who come into what you just described is really focusing and educating on what ends up being like an 80-20 or basically no gray area. You're either working exceptionally hard or very, I want to say like zone two, like just lower intensity, but longer. And
mhm.
that it's making its way, of course, again, all the way through the Peloton and the professional Peloton. And it's nothing new. Nothing, none of this is new, right? But I have had so much success in general, broad strokes, with helping women who are coming from that deep exhaustion and desire to push hard all the time, and encourage to try recovery and go
Mhm.
harder on your hard days. Not just,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sweating and this is hard, but like, no, this is hard. We're creating, right, that neuroendocrine changes within the system because you're lifting heavier weights, but we're
Mhm,
resting more in between sets. We're not doing high intensity for an hour circuit training class. So I do still have riders who come in and they don't want to give that up because it's social hour for them. They love it and it's social. I'm like, you know what? Fine, that's fine. We're going to build this into your schedule, but let's take one day where we're focusing on delivering more strength. And
mhm.
and so we've worked it out that way.
And I
But
love that because,
yeah,
like I said, we don't wanna
so
take
awesome.
away joy from
No.
people, and I I'll tell you, I absolutely would enjoy, a high intensity circuit sometimes when I just like, yeah, I just wanna move. I wanna feel, like, sweaty and working hard, but I know that I'm not gonna walk out of there with, like, big gains or something like
Yeah.
that, and I can't do it all the
Mhm.
time, and it's
Mhm.
back to that unlearning
Yeah, the
to
unlearning.
that like, to do less. We need to
Yeah.
do less, not do more. Doing more
Yeah.
isn't really getting us anywhere, and our whole society has
Yeah.
been built on doing more all the
It
time,
is.
and it's just like, no matter what in our lives, it's like, "No, we have to do less. We have to take less like, more we have to take more off of our plate, and that's something, again, that I've been working on is saying no, like, not doing this thing that sounds super cool and fun, and I would
Mm.
love to do it, and really saying like, I just did recently with a, opportunity. I'm helping out teaching some classes, at this yoga festival that's happening early July, and the opportunity came up to do some more kind of paddle boarding and tours and things, and I really
Cool.
had to say, like, I would love to do that, but my focus right now is teaching the classes and just doing that and not taking on more later in the day and maybe
Mhm.
having, like, a split day,
Mhm. Yeah, I
like,
remember the split days.
I'd
Oof.
rather kinda
Yeah.
yeah, teach, and then I probably have to go work my restaurant job that weekend, and I just have to know where I am with what I can do and take on, and of course, I'd rather be on the water, and I love, guiding and doing that, but I just felt that the priority to me was teaching the yoga, and I wanted to be able to give my all for that
That's great.
every day of the
Yeah.
festival, so I had to say no to the second part, and for some, it might feel like, well, it's easy and it's the same thing and you're on the water and da 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 da, but when I'm thinking about the timing of my day is what I just really had to put in, and I know that I have to kinda line things up and not go off switch, on switch, off switch, on switch.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm learning more of that about myself and, yeah, like I said, taking the not saying yes to everything even though it
Correct.
sounds super cool, and also knowing where I can put that on my schedule just for fun and not for, like, work, right? I take a lot of opportunities that end up being work, and I'm like, "But when do I get to go out and actually just, paddle for my own fun?"
Yes.
And, like, why do I only have to do it if it's a opportunity over here? And, yeah, just, taking the time out or the ride, right? The bike packing, going on by myself on a 0 pace and not having any expectations, um, but it's that thing that we've been
Yeah.
talking about a long time, guys, is boundaries. Like,
Yeah,
we
and
have to
doing
have them and
less.
stick to them.
And doing
Yeah.
less. I love that. I was gonna say I had a story of a woman who was, again, super just like I described, this train, 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 always with a fast group, really tired. And again, a mindset shift, a little bit of faith in coaching and trying something new. And we typically will replace some of that riding with getting in the gym because they were not getting in the gym, but getting consistent, 2 days a week in the gym, really working, not doing high intensity interval training, but in the gym, lifting and on a progression, right? A traditional progression. I get this a lot, like, "Well, I thought you just said only lift heavy." I'm like, "But we can't just dive into lifting heavy." Like, we have to start
Yeah.
where if you're not already lifting, like, we're gonna start with body weight, and then we're gonna work our way through the journey to lifting heavy. And, sticking with that, so doing less overall hours, but being more intentional with strength. And as we age, that is the thing that starts to decrease and as it leaves the house without you even knowing. It doesn't even say goodbye. It's just you're on a ride and all of a sudden you
Irish goodbye.
yeah, you were just like all your life you're just popping up and over these little hills and now you're just like, "I can't do this anymore. This is really hard." And what happened, right? So I really believe that foundationally as women who are wanting to continue to stay active and strong and fit, we have to be getting that strength training in. And it doesn't have to all look the same, but it needs to be happening at least twice a week.
Yeah.
And then as we do that, we then layer your cycling or your running or your paddleboarding, like, on top of that. But I feel like if you do honestly wanna continue, we shift from always riding and doing the cool thing to we're gonna eat our vegetables, right? We're gonna focus on the strength training first so you can get stronger, so you can go longer. You're more durable. You've got fatigue resistance galore because your muscles can handle it. And that, my friend, is like, if everyone would do that, I'd work myself out of a job.
Yeah, which we talked about before we
Yeah.
recorded, that that is, like, our goals as coaches or personal trainers. It's something I tell my clients all the time is, like, we are trying to work ourselves out of a job. I don't want you to have to come to me once a week or twice a week or however many times a week for the rest of your life. I want to give you the tools,
Yeah.
and just like at the beginning when you mentioned the glow and the feeling and, like, trying to put this feeling into words, I remember distinctly talking about this about Rome Fest too, is like, there's no words to explain the feeling that you
Yes.
get from some events or things that you do, accomplishments. As a person who is a coach, my biggest, like, yes, and, like, this is what I'm here for moments are when I see, like you said, that glow. When that client got through that session, lifted that weight that they've been trying to, reach this goal, and you could really tell that it clicked. They know, like, "I can do this. I
Mhm.
am strong, and
Mhm.
I've made it here," and that feels so, so good to see other people accomplish something that they thought at one time they wouldn't be able to, and when you experience that yourself too, like, "This is something I wanted to do," and we all know what it feels like to have reached a goal, whether it was something we worked for a long time or a
Uh-huh.
short time, at that
Mhm.
dopamine rush, checking that to-do list off, right? Like, how
Mhm.
good it feels, like, "Holy shit, I did that."
Yeah.
However big or little it is, it gives you this feeling and this rush, and when you can give that to other people too, it's so amazing, and yeah, the goal is not to be someone that people rely on always, but to know I'm always here if you need me,
Yes.
but I want you to know you can do it yourself.
Yeah. And keep showing up. I'm
Mhm.
like, let's see. If last year we had 10 people at this ride, let's have 20 this year, right? Like, I just want to see more, and I want people to feel like they belong more because I think you can't be it until you see it, right? And when you're seeing more women with gray hair, right? More women who have kids who are at the start line, the more empowered you're going to be to keep going because they did it. I can do it, right? And I just, I just want to see like, more space being created for those women because, like, we're not here to hang up our wheels. We're here to continue with those
No.
adventures. I always think, like, I just want you to point your bike I want you to point your handlebars in, like, that dream, and we're gonna make it happen, right? Let's just keep it
Yeah.
going. Yeah, I always talk about, like, your dream cycling event or your dream, trip, right? Whether it's bike packing or traveling to, ride somewhere new. Anyways, I just want people to keep that stoke alive because otherwise, what are we all here for?
Yeah. Absolutely, and, we are in this time of life where because we are seeing more representation from women of different ages at those starting lines.
Mhm,
We are seeing, women who are, this moms in their late 30s, like, new moms in their late
mm,
30s and
mhm.
early 40s.
Yeah,
You didn't less like, moms who had kids in their 20s but they're still now they're in their 40s or 50s and still riding is amazing, but we're seeing such a wider age range of moms that I think is really awesome to know that, like, you're not too late if you're having a kid later in your 30s or early 40s. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean that, like, you can't get back to your sport or
yeah,
whatever
not at
even
all.
after that. You still absolutely can. Your glory days are still not behind you, no matter what time of life you've become a mom, and so I think it's really great, like I said, just seeing the wider age range of women starting families and still doing the thing, because it's obviously even more important too to show your daughters, your
Yeah,
children, your
yeah,
sons too, that, like, no matter what age you are as a mom, that you can still go out and do the things that you love and enjoy, and of course, through certain times of life, you may have to put some things on the back burner, and they won't
mhm,
always take the precedence, but it's not always just giving it up. We touched on this quickly in this conversation, and also when we had one offline about it is if you stop doing something because you just don't enjoy it anymore, it's okay. It is absolutely okay to take a break and know that it doesn't have to be forever. You
yep,
can hang your wheels up for if
yeah,
you're not enjoying it anymore, and just
mhm,
know that it might not be forever. And if it turns out that way because it's something you never get back to enjoying, that's fine. That's fine. We move on. Things change. But I think we have to let go of the fear of like, if I do stop, I'll never ever get back to it because you are proof of that with the clients that you have in the age range that
Mhm.
anytime you can pick that bike up again and start, and it may look entirely different. It may be, for me, I'm like, I was never competitive in cycling. Doesn't mean I can't decide I want to be.
Yeah,
I don't care if I'm going into towards my 40s. Like,
yeah,
they do say women in their 40s actually have that higher threshold for endurance. So
absolutely.
now
As
could
in
be the time to shine,
yeah,
babies.
so many women didn't even start until they're, like, 45, right? And that was in their starting, so you're ahead of the game already.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it, and I think that, overall out there, ladies, whether you decide you wanna get a coach or not, I mean, we're here just to tell you that it is great if you can. It's not accessible to everybody, obviously, but I think the greater point of the conversation is whether you're looking into coaching or not, it's just don't give up,
Yeah,
right? This is most of the
yeah,
conversations we have on the podcast are about that is you may feel like you're in a stage and state of life that you're just hitting that brick wall no matter what you do, but we're all out here resonating with that and understanding that, and you just have to change. You have to be able to change
yeah,
it a little, know that it's
yeah,
gonna look a certain way, but you definitely don't have to give up, but maybe you do have to do less. Maybe you do have to take a real serious break, but it doesn't have to be forever. And there's tons of women who are going through the same things out there, and we just have to find what is gonna work for us, and there are
yeah,
people out there to support you along
yeah,
that
communities.
journey.
Yeah,
Yep. And speaking on that too, Marissa, I definitely want to hear from you on some resources that you have for
yeah,
people and
yeah, yeah.
how they can find you, and if they're interested in coaching or any other like tips and things and ways to follow you, where they can get that from.
I love that. So I do offer one-on-one coaching services, similar to like personal training for your bike. But so coaching one-on-one. I'm running a group program, which is a little hybrid of one-on-one and then a group atmosphere. So that is we're enrolling right now. That'll start after the big holiday. It'll start after July 4th. And you can find all of my information on my website, which is I'll leave it in the show notes, but actionfitnessandcoaching.com. But I wanted to get back to your accessibility part. And that I was struck with that earlier this season, and so I've, created a way for I have a lot of riders who just want my cycling training programs, and they've been purchasing them over the years, and so I've actually created it into a little bit of almost like a membership, where when you do join the membership, you have access to all of my library, which is huge right now, and so whether you're doing gravel, mountain bike, etc. So you have a program that is written for a woman over 40, and it comes with support over email. So I'm not like personalizing it to you, but when you have questions, give me an email and I'll email you right back with that support. That is like to me so important that people have an accessible way for less than it depends on what you buy but less than $100 at sometimes, and you have my support with you for 6 weeks. So it's really runs the gamut from one-on-one all the way down to doing it yourself, but asking questions and getting support that way. And then like I was saying, everything's on my website. And if you want free training tips for 40 plus women, I have it's just a private podcast where instead of a PDF, you can listen to me chat about all of the cool things that you could be doing and how to get there. So again, find it on my website,
I love it.
actionfitnessandcoaching.com.
Awesome.
Yay.
Amazing. Well, yes, like that will definitely be linked in the show notes, ladies. So make sure to check it out if you're interested in getting some tips, different kinds of programs and coachings that are out there
Yeah.
available to you if that's the route you want to go. And there's always, the steps to take and places to start of like maybe it's just listening to some of these tips, then trying a program, like a general program, and then maybe getting personalized, all depending on
If you
where
want.
you want to go. And yeah, but
Yeah.
getting started is the hardest part and the main part, and then you have to kinda see what works for you, so I'm
I
always a
love that.
proponent of, like, pick something easy, see how it goes, and you may find, like, okay, I do love this, but I do want something more personalized, or you're like, nope, this general program works for me, or you're like, you know what? I want to fly by the seat of my pants and do my own thing, then whatever. It didn't work for
Yeah.
you. But there's so many options out there. And I love that you have, a lot of variety for people and ways to
Yeah,
access it differently. It also depends on where you're at, right? Seasonally, you're like, oh,
totally.
this is not the time for me or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Seasons matter
awesome.
so much in cycling. It's wild. I mean, indoor cycling has helped, but it is wild how just yeah, the seasonality. Not and I don't mean just like snow and rain, but I mean like school and summer vacation and a lot of that. So it is I'm always as a business owner always trying to navigate those things and it is just fascinating to me how different years have different seasonalities. Anyways, I love it. I was going to shout out one
Yeah.
last thing is like looking at
Mhm.
people like you, and I just mean you in the general sense, like all of you listening to this, people like me, people like Tyron, like people like us doing these cool things. And I get so inspired looking at their stories. So there are like their story athlete success stories. There's little blurbs of like, yeah, I did this and this happened this weekend out of the blue, right? My favorite one, I'll leave you with this is my athlete, her name's Shannon. She's a mountain biker. We've been working on a 24-hour mountain bike race? No, 50 that was it. Now it's gonna be the 50-mile mountain bike race in Butte, the Butte 50. And long story short, she dropped 48 minutes from her climb, her local
Whoa.
climb. I know, just kind of out of the blue. So, I'm not saying I was expecting it, but, we train to do these, but I love when they're just like, "I don't understand why this happened." I'm like, "Well, it's" I was like, I'm not taking, I'm not taking responsibility, you're the one doing it, but I was like, "It's because we're working these programs and you're putting in the time
Yeah.
and you're
The
starting."
intentionality.
Exactly. And no, she's not perfect, she's a
Yeah.
mom, she has to cancel stuff all the time, right? But we can, like you said, let it be easy, showing up consistently. What if you dropped an hour from your best, your local climb? Like, I would be ecstatic. So I get so
I would
inspired by
love
stories like
to.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that perked me up a lot. I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, exactly. Only for personal reasons. It's like, I would love to cut some times off the
Yeah.
routes I usually do because that makes it more accessible
And
for
fun.
me to
Mhm.
do more often.
Yeah.
At the current states, I'm like, I can't do that this many times a week because it takes
Yeah.
so much more out of me. So,
Yeah.
again,
I think
it's
that's
just
so
for
cool.
my own enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's hard
Well,
to put that into words, right? I'm like, what
yep,
is the word for the glow? And the other one, what is the word for the feeling when you drop an out? Like, but if you know, let me.
exactly. Yeah.
Let me know.
I think it depends for everybody. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be different, but it's an amazing talking with you, Marissa, and also, I forgot at the moment, but I got I picked up that Stacey Sims Roar book when it
Oh,
came out,
yeah.
in 2016 or whatnot, and I never finished it, and I'm like, "I'm going into my storage container right now, I know exactly where it is, I'm pulling it out," and because I do think that honestly right now I was reading it because I was, is the early stages of my personal training journey. I wanna work with mostly
Yeah.
women, but I think now just being at a different stage in life
Yep.
10 years later that it's gonna also hit so,
Huge.
so, so differently
Huge.
that I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta get that thing out there, so,
Yeah.
if you guys don't follow Stacey Sims, I think you absolutely should. There's a lot of great women out there these days speaking on
Tons
things,
of
Mar
great tons of
yeah,
great women doing great things to help us. I love it.
yeah,
I was gonna say
yeah.
too, like the book Level Up, super helpful. It was kind of the follow-up to Roar. So, yeah, both
Okay,
of those have been
okay,
so
cool.
helpful navigating this journey. Um, when you find yourself asking me like, "Am I a little bonkers for this?" And then, "Oh, no, it's actually a symptom." Like, "Okay, okay, we'll work through this." Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been helpful, and
awesome.
it's been a little bit of a, salve for when you are questioning your sanity at times.
Cool. I will try really hard to remember to put those books in the show notes for you all too. But
Yay.
thank you all out there for listening. Thank you, Marissa, for being out there and doing what you're doing and helping women just stay on their bikes, stay active, and shout out, if you guys need any help, have any questions, like reach out to either one of us. If you're not exactly sure what might be right for you, I'll put links to contact Marissa in there and list of offerings. So
Love it.
thanks again, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.
Yay.